Hey guys, I'm going to walk you through on how to use the optimizer on the Quant Edge. I understand that anytime you have a new product, there's going to be a lot of questions, so I want to answer them. I want to also make it clear that this is version 1.0 and we are going to continue to improve it as the season goes on. So to start real simply, we have three tabs. We have the tab that includes all players, we have the excluded tab, and we have the My Lineups tab. Let's start on the all tab. DraftKings and FanDuel allows you to switch back and forth on which slate you would like or which site you would like to play on. So let's start on DraftKings. We can select the main slate, 1 p.m. only, afternoon turbo. These are all the different slates that we can play. We can sort it by positions by going to quarterback. This will change it to running backs. This will change it to wide receivers, tight end, flex, DST, all. All just brings back the entire player pool. Exclude all. That'll allow us to take all of our players out of the player pool. Once we do that, if we go to the excluded tab, we can see all the players that are excluded. All we have to simply do is click include to add them back. If that was a mistake and want to include all, they're all now back. Pretty simple. Projections and floors. So let's run through what each one of these things means. Position, what position they play, the player's name, what team they play for, who their opponent is, what their DraftKings salary is. PPD stands for point per dollar. That's simply, this would be so you just divide the projection by the salary. And so it would be 19.17 divided by 6.7, and you'd have 2.86. If I change this number to whatever it is, the point per dollar will change. This is kind of like a rankings system that we have. This is the floor projection, so this is the ceiling projection. Min percentage and max percentage, that's for if we want to build multiple lineups and set player exposures. Whatever the percentage is. So we want 50% of Deshaun Watson, we would just type in 50. And now when we set our build rules, which I'll get to in a second, you'll have 50% of Deshaun Watson. Now, if I want to use this over here, this is for a singular lineup. If I try to optimize right now, it's going to say please lock at least 2 players. You have to put at least 2 players into your lineup. So if I put let's say I want Larry Fitzgerald and AJ Green. If I hit optimize, I now have a full lineup. These guys are all locked in there. All I have to do, if I want to eliminate a couple of people, right, if I optimize again, because these are the 2 best positions, that's fine. I can then go and say, okay, I don't want the Ravens. I can search right here for the Ravens. I unlock this. I exclude the Ravens. Now, if I optimize, it'll give me a different defense. It'll give me the next best defense that it thinks. So that's how you optimize a singular lineup. Now, if you want to input your own projections, you can do that pretty simply. Anything with a box around it means that you can set it. This is a lock button. This is an exclude button. Now, before we go in and make our actual lineups, let's just reset everything. If I go to build rules, this is also the My Lineups tab. This will allow me to set all my build rules. Number of lineups to produce, I can produce anywhere between 1 and 150 lineups. Min-max salary, this is how much of the salary has to be used or what the maximum is. Now 50,000 is obviously the max that's allowed on DraftKings. However, for tournament purposes, we may want to make it a little bit less. Every 100 is the increment that you can go by, and you can make it as little as 30 and as much as 50. Number of unique players in your lineup. How many players? The higher this number, kind of the more different the lineup is going to be. The max exposure for the rest of the players. So the way this works is any player if I lock a player, no matter what I set the max exposure to, they're going to be at 100%. Okay? This means that if I don't lock a player, what's the maximum percentage that the optimizer is allowed to give me of any individual player. So if I set this to 80%, outside of locked players, I can't have more than 80% of any individual player. That's what max exposure for the rest of the players means. Avoid opposing defenses. If I click yes on this, that means that if I pick a player in offense, I'm not going to have that defense in my lineup. So, for example, let's say I lock in the Denver Broncos and it's week 1, and I click avoid opposing defenses. I will not get any Russell Wilson. I won't get any Doug Baldwin. Stack players from the same team. Now, right now, the way this works is that I select the quarterback I want to stack. So if I stack Jimmy Garoppolo, I select the positions that I'm willing to stack him with. And this will give me 100% Jimmy Garoppolo, but this will force me to always have someone on his team, to try to get those double points. Stack wide receiver or tight end on the opposing team. So let's say I wanted to do this with Jimmy Garoppolo and clicked yes. This means that this would allow me to say who the opposing team quarterback is and what positions I was willing to stack him with. Adding groups. Right now, we only have the functionality to add 3 groups. We're going to work on adding that. But this allows me to set a group. So let's say I want Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin. I can set what exposure I want these at. I want at least 20% of my teams to have Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin, no more than 40%. I can say I want to have a game stack and put David Johnson and Jordan Reed. And I want this in at least 50% of my lineups and no more than 80%. This is a way to set individual player exposures. You can also do 0 groups. So let's say I want James Conner and Carlos Hyde, but I don't want any of them in the same lineup. I would just set them at 0%. Now, if I don't want a group, I would just delete it. It goes up from there. Can add a group. Again, right now you can only have 3 groups, but we're continuing to work on that, so that won't be an issue over time. Now, right now, this will show me from the previous page who's locked into my lineups. Now, if I try to, I've seen people say that they get this error right now. If I click build my lineups, I'm going to get an error message that says, please adjust your build rules and or locked players. You have to set exposures on at least 2 players. So if I say, let's say I want 50% David Johnson and 50% Ezekiel Elliott, right? If I come back here, I now have locked in, I now have 50% Ezekiel Elliott, or at least, right, because I put the minimum there, and 50% David Johnson. Now, depending on the number of teams, right, if it's 13, there's not going to be an exact 50% of 13, so that's why it's 46.9 or whatever it is. So this allows me to check on all my players' exposure, see how everything is. Again, right now I set it up so that Deshaun Watson would be my stacked player, so it gave me 100% of Deshaun Watson. If you want to do individual groups of a quarterback and wide receiver and you don't want to kind of go all in on a stack, that's probably the best way to do it for now. You may want to, say you want 10 Deshaun Watson teams and you want to set about 8 groups. You might want to do it 10 at a time and download those lineups and then do the next 10. It's not the most ideal thing in the world at the moment, but it's kind of what we're working to continue to improve. And by week 2, we expect to have improved in a lot of these areas. Now, on the right here, if I click on one of these arrows, it's going to show me all the other defenses that I can afford. So if I want to take out the Chargers, who are 2,800, I can pick the Redskins, and all I have to do is simply click pick, and it'll put the Cardinals in my lineup. I want to take the Saints out. I'm going to pick the Vikings. Now the Vikings are in my lineup. So that's how you use a lot of the different functionalities of the tool. Let's go to the exclude tab. So let's just reset everything. One thing right now is if you do refresh the page, you are going to lose your data. So if you set a lot of min-max exposures, don't refresh the page. Same thing as if you change from DraftKings to FanDuel, you can lose that data. We're working on finding a solution to that, but it's something you certainly want to be aware of. So if I told you if I exclude all, and I go here, show the players, this is a great way to limit your player pool. Let's say you only want 30 guys, you want to create 20 lineups, and you kind of want to just set your player pool. I can kind of click on team by team. So if I click on uncheck Arizona, it'll show me all the Arizona players. Let's say I want to include Larry Fitzgerald, Sam Bradford, and David Johnson, right? And then I want to click on Baltimore. Now it's going to show me all the different Baltimore guys, right? I want to include, and if I go back here, right, I can see the guys that I have included and excluded. Now, at the same time, if I take one guy off the field, if I just say Larry Fitzgerald, I don't want him, he's going to populate here. Now all I have to do is go back and click include. Important to note, something we're working on fixing, is that right now if I uncheck Carolina, that's not going to remove the Carolina players. The best way to create a player pool quickly of your desired players is to exclude all, and when you go to your excluded players, you can kind of search team by team. All right, so I just want these 3 guys in Arizona. Atlanta's not going to have any players because they're not in the actual slate. You'll notice that all 32 teams are listed. I want to take Jacksonville. I want to make sure that Blake Bortles and Keelan Cole and the Jaguars defense can possibly be in my lineups. And that's how you do excluded players. This is kind of a general overview of what the optimizer is. As always, you guys can hop in the chat. It's always just right here. You can hit on the help section. You can message me directly. You can just throw it in any one of the chats and I'll answer any of the questions you have. But that's the general overview in terms of how you can use the optimizer and what it does. I guess the other thing is once I build my lineups, so let me just do this real quickly. Let me include all so it works. I locked Blake Bortles and Keelan Cole if I'm going to do a stack. Want to build 10 lineups. When I go build lineups, I now have my lineups. If I download my lineups, it gets me a CSV that I can immediately upload to DraftKings. So all I got to do is upload that CSV or download the CSV, save it, and here are my 10 lineups that are ready to upload to DraftKings. All right, guys, I hope you found this helpful, and let me know if there are any questions.